Russ Williams here again. I want to share an update and give you a brief demo of what is now V1 of the ACS Agent Hub. V1 now supports multi-agent scenarios, conversation history prior to escalation, and a real-time update capability thanks to the new Web Pub Sub service that's in public preview.
So let me explain what you're looking at here. I have two agent portal screens running side by side. The first portal page was opened by Agent Martin. The second portal page was opened by Agent Mindy. And what we see here is that Agent Martin has taken ownership of the conversation with Father Time. Agent Mindy has taken ownership of the conversation with Mother Nature. You'll notice that each agent's view only shows the conversation they've taken ownership of. Both agents will see queued conversations still waiting to be accepted by an agent. So now I'll quickly show you each of the various conversational scenarios. Let me start by showing you how an agent accepts and takes ownership of a conversation.
I'll start with Agent Martin accepting Rosie's escalation. You'll notice that Agent Mandy's window gets a real-time refresh notification, which causes her conversation panel to update and Rosie's conversation to disappear now that Agent Martin has taken ownership. This was accomplished by WebSocket communication between the Agent Portal and the ACS Agent Hub, and only took a few lines of code since I'm using the new Web Pub Sub service to host what I'd call a WebSocket server. Something else I'd like to point out is the conversation history the agent sees when they initially accept the conversation. The dialogue you see in the chat composite happened between the bot and the end user prior to the escalation and is included to provide context to the agent without forcing the user to relive their drama. If you're paying attention, you'll see a bug affecting the order of the conversation, but that's been addressed and I'll get that fixed in the next release. One last thing that's worth pointing out before we move on is that when the agent accepted the conversation, the Agent Hub sent a conversation accepted event to the bot so that it could show a prompt that lets the end user know that the agent has accepted the conversation. Moving on now, I'll show the agent conversing with the end user. This, of course, is an example of message traffic, so now you've seen both events and messages exchanged. And here's Rosie responding to the agent. And finally, Agent Martin will end the conversation by hanging up, which will cause a conversation closed event to be sent to the bot so that it can show a prompt telling Rosie that the conversation is ended and that she's now back talking to the bot. So now let me quickly show the same scenario, but this time I'll have Agent Mindy take ownership of the conversation to further illustrate the multi-user aspect of the solution. Again, you'll notice the real-time update of Agent Martin's conversation panel. Okay, so far I've shown you existing conversations. For this last scenario, I'll show you how an escalation begins. As I mentioned before in the previous demo, users can express a desire to speak to an agent in a variety of different ways using our language understanding service, or the bot could sense a need for escalation from sentiment or from how the conversation in general is going. When the bot recognizes the escalation intent, it drops into an escalation dialog that asks the user for their name and the reason they want to speak to an agent. The bot then initiates a conversation with the ACS Agent Hub, which then notifies the agent portal clients that there's a new escalation request. Now here's a bit of a twist. So far, I've shown agent-driven conversations where the agent ends the conversation. For this last conversation, I'll show the end user ending the conversation. This act causes the action icon of the conversation panel to turn into a minus sign. And if the agent drills into that conversation, they can see that the end user unilaterally ended the conversation. And as we saw before, closing that conversation causes a real-time update that removes the conversation from all other clients. Okay, so there you have it, V1. I now have this solution in a private repo, and I'm happy to provide access to anyone who wants to take this thing for a spin or to look at the implementation details. I've created deployment scripts and detailed instructions that will allow anyone to get this stood up in their dev environment in just a few minutes. The deployment scripts deploy and configure all the required Azure services, and the step-by-step instructions show you how to go from installing the prerequisites to a complete walkthrough of a basic agent scenario. Send me an email with your GitHub ID, and I'll gladly add you to my private repo.